Are you struggling with hair loss? With Keeps, you can get a personalized treatment plan from home. Visit keeps.com/theotherside for a special offer. Results may vary.
I'm Dr. Laurence Brock, and I'm going to talk to you about my near-death experience and some of my other amazing spiritual experiences that I've had since then. My near-death experience happened in 1976, and I was 22 years old, and I am almost 70 now, so it was a long time ago. A big part of my experience was I had never heard of a near-death experience, and it wasn't even on my mind, or, there was nothing about it except things that I've seen in science fiction. So I was living in Colorado in the United States, in Longmont, Colorado, and my parents lived where I grew up in Rye Brook, New York. My roommate was also from Rye Brook because we went to high school together, and we decided to come back east to visit our parents. He had a Datsun 280Z, which was this great car to drive, but we drove straight through, so it was about 1,800 miles. He dropped me off at my parents' house, and we each took a nap, and I don't even remember how we found out about the party. You got to remember, this is before cell phones, before email, before any of that stuff. So somehow, talking to someone, one of us found out that one of our friends from high school was having a party. I took my mom's little Ford Bobcat to the party, and he drove his cool Datsun 280Z. And we were there. We were definitely smoking pot and drinking. And I didn't think that I was too high, and people weren't quite as careful as they are nowadays about drinking and driving. The house was jam-packed. There was loud music playing. People are dancing, and just to talk to anyone, you had to kind of yell. I remember walking through the crowd toward the door to leave. I don't remember actually walking out of the door. I remember like flashes of walking down the walkway out to the street. And then the next thing I remember, I was out of my body in the white light, floating above my smashed car, my body, my head. You can see there's a scar here. My head was cracked open. I was leaning against a tree and my legs were straight on the ground like that, and there was a police officer crouching over me. Where I was, what I perceived as me, I didn't even relate to my body as being me, because I identified as my soul, I guess, floating in the white light was me, and I looked down at my body. And it was all white light all around me. Behind me, there was a big circle of white light, and within that circle, there was like a full-length silhouette of a man, and off of that man was like radiating different shades of white light with a little bit of like yellowish gold in there, but very little bit. My main experience and memory of it was more feeling as opposed to words or knowing stuff in my mind. But it was more like feeling just the greatest love and acceptance, and like everything was okay. My life was okay. My head cracked open was okay. The car smashed was okay. I was okay. Just everything in the world was okay. And it wasn't like this celebratory whoopee-doo kind of thing. It was just more like everything was peaceful and nice. There was a part of knowing, but again, it's so hard to describe exactly, because there was knowing, but there was no need to know anything. It wasn't like there were questions to be answered. It's just everything that, the images of my life that were there, just everything was fine. And it did seem like I had a body, because I didn't look down, but I felt like I had a body, and it felt like the perfect weather. To me, I like the warm weather, so it was like a perfect summer day. And sometimes when you feel you're out outside and it's just so beautiful, you kind of feel it on your body. I don't know how long that was. It didn't, when I tell the story, it's very short. It seemed longer, but it didn't seem like, sometimes people say they have near-death experiences and it seemed like years. It wasn't like that either. The being behind me said, "You have to go back. Your father wants you to stay." I knew right at that time the Father was not my physical father, but God. And in the spirit of everything was okay. Sometimes people ask me, did you have a choice? I didn't even think of that. The voice said, go back in. I went back into my body. and came to 3 days later in the hospital. There was a little bit of almost coming to in the hospital, and I still have images in my mind of hazy people walking by in white suits, like, doctors or nurses kind of thing. I came to. The things I remember is when I was healthy enough to stand up, I stood up and I was about to leave the hospital, and my parents came in, and like we were standing in a circle with my parents here, the neurologist here, and I'm here, and we were talking. The only thing I remember is as the neurologist was leaving, his face came very close to mine, and he almost kind of whispered to me, "You're lucky." And he had this smirk on his face, like he had done a really great job, and he did, because my head was really smashed open. And then right around then, there was a nurse there in the room who wasn't in our circle, but on the other side of the bed, said, yeah, it was touch and go. So I don't know if I flatlined. We never got that information. I also had a Polaroid picture of the car, and I didn't really keep that much track of it because it didn't seem like such a thing, and I knew this happened. I knew something in me changed. I just didn't know what to think about it mentally. My intuition did increase about things, but I had always been kind of intuitive. One thing I did start to notice right away, when I touched someone, my hands would start to become very warm almost instantly. And how I learned to understand what this was, and I don't even remember when I first heard the term near-death experience, but it was years later. So some things happened where I kind of help people heal almost without even knowing. It's not like I was thinking, oh, I have healing powers. It was just kind of stumbling across this stuff. Besides my intuition and the heat in my hands, something that definitely happened, I just started meeting a lot of spiritual people, a lot of people that knew about near-death experiences, a lot of people that had near-death experiences. So once I was healthy enough, I went back to Colorado and lived there for a while. I was working in a restaurant. I was second chef and I like cooking, but it wasn't quite as fulfilling as I thought it would be. I was thinking about actually going back to school. I had finished undergraduate school, and but then my mom bribed me to move back east, and she bought me a brand new Jeep, and a CJ5, and in New York in those days, I mean, there were some people that had Jeeps in Colorado, but in New York, hardly anyone did. And she bribed me to come back east and, live in Westchester County and work in my dad's electrical contracting company. So I was doing that for a little while, and I was sitting in my apartment in Tarrytown, New York, and someone knocked on the door. I opened the door. Again, the reference of that is very different because there were no cell phones. No one texted me or let me know they were coming. People would just show up. And so I got up and answered the door, and there was this beautiful woman there. And she said, I'm the sister of a friend of yours from Colorado. And that person happened to be someone that I did mention my experience to. And again, not using the word near-death experience. And the woman at the door said to me, my sister told me some really interesting things about you, and I want to introduce you to this man who teaches about what happens after we die. She just showed up at the door. I didn't do anything. I didn't reach out. Again, I was almost trying to deny my spiritual experience because it was like, well, you got to have a job and make money and stuff like that. So she introduced me to a Sufi sheikh. And the Sufis are the mystical sect of the Islamic religion, and there's a few different sects of that. So he was a Mevlevi dervish, and the Mevlevis follow the teachings of Jalaluddin Rumi. So Rumi, the poet that a lot of people read his poems, and they're spiritual, but they're also kind of love poems. But he wrote them all about his love for God and for his teacher, Shams Tabriz. So I ended up spending like 10 years studying with that sheikh. I had all sorts of really amazing experiences, some of the things he did. One of the really cool things happened, it was probably a couple of years after I first met him. So I spent time with him in Boulder, Colorado, in Vancouver, Canada, in Texas, in the panhandle of Texas. I don't even remember what town it was near, but there was this really big ranch there. So, and in New York City some. So he was teaching this class in St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan. It was about sacred geometry. And I had asked him if I could be in the class, and he said, "You're not going to understand it," which he was right, because all the other people in the class had been studying for quite a while. But he said, "You could hang around me and help me out." So I was doing things like carrying his briefcase and sweeping the floor and organizing the chairs, doing kind of menial tasks that sometimes spiritual teachers allow people to do around them just to be around them. During one of the breaks, he said to me, "Come into my office." He didn't have an office. He would always be joking, and I never knew when he was serious about anything, he told me, no matter how profound it sounded. But he said, "Come into my office," and he said, "Here, give me your hands." And he took both, I put my hands together like this. He put my hand within his hands like this, and he goes, "There, you got it." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he didn't even answer me. And then he said, "Oh, no, give me your hands again." Then he did the same thing. He said, "There, you got it." I noticed after that my hands became even warmer, and I kind of started to have a feeling for what those healing powers that I got or started or activated in my near-death experience were about. I recently been getting a little more serious about writing a book about all my experiences. And one thing I really noticed is I learned a lot about healing from him, but it wasn't hands-on healing. I mean, I learned a lot about spiritual things. And when I first started studying some hands-on healing, that's when I understood it. Like, I'm a very kinesthetic person. And in the same way my near-death experience was more feeling, my feeling that way about healing, that's when it really clicked in that I got it. So I spent time with this teacher in a number of places. There were sometimes he was just talking to me directly, sometimes it was classes he was teaching, but the thing he started to talk to me about, so he's an Islamic teacher. I was born in a Jewish family, and he started to talk to me about Mary, Mother Mary, and then about Jesus. And when he talked about Mary, he said Mary was just so open to the Christ energy that she let that in, and that's how she became Jesus's mother, because she was so dedicated and open to God. When he said that, I knew that feeling of being open to that tremendous love and light is what I experienced in my near-death experience. Then when he started to talk to me about Jesus, it was like, and still now it goes like whoosh, and that being behind me was Jesus, and I knew that. And it, even now, when I talk about it, there's this energy that moves through my body that I've learned to use for healing people. The part of not knowing about what happened to me has become a great experience for me. That quest for wanting to know is still with me, and I'm always looking to learn more about spiritual phenomena. So I had, besides that direct transmission of more healing energy from the teacher, I had some other really cool experiences with him, with some other spiritual teachers, and now with some of the healing work that I do. And I know I've been kind of naive about so many things. One thing is I just really see the good in people, and that's, I just know everyone's good, and I kind of assume everyone's in the process of unfolding into their goodness in the same way I am, but not everyone is. I was kind of naive about happening in my hands, like that something happened. One of my friends twisted his ankle right near me, and I just put my hands on it right away without even thinking about it. And he felt the warmth happen, and he felt it, and he goes, "Whoa, that made it feel better." Okay, so, and that was, again, not understanding, and still like, what's going on here, and learning a little bit here and there. Another thing happened where my neighbor next to the house that I grew up in, that I went back and would spend time there. So I was talking to the father, and he said that his father, the grandfather, was very sick, and he was saying he was going to pass away very soon. And I said to him, again, almost without even thinking about it, that I'll pray for him. And I did go and pray for him, and I felt something happen. Again, not knowing, not knowing what to think about it. But then the next time I saw the father, he said to me, "I think something happened when you prayed, because right after, pretty soon after I talked to you, it was almost like he had this phenomenal recovery, and he ended up living for some months longer. When I first started talking to the Sufi sheikh, he would call me a sensitive. The book I read of his teacher called him a sensitive. So I knew that was, that was a compliment, that I was sensitive to these spiritual things. I take this very seriously and I work very hard. I study with people that I meet. I read books. I do meditate every day. I do Tai Chi. I do yoga. I do journal writing. And I recommend journal writing and meditation to everyone. A lot of times people come to me, they're just really distraught over emotional things, and it just really helps them clear up, like this, the light energy, that loving that I experienced in my near-death experience. I've learned how to kind of hold that there for people, and I just hold it around them. And so I talk to them, and there's kind of two reasons to talk to them. One is to get their mind aligned with opening up to this goodness that is inside of them and outside of them. And once they can open up to that, the healing light comes in and they get better. They feel better. I mean, most people almost always by the end of the session go, wow, I feel so light and happier. I really encourage people, if they feel like they have any gifts, to really explore that. Now, everyone has some gift in them, whether it's, it's pretty easy to see what I do as a spiritually cool thing, but anything could be that. Doing electrical work, doing construction, painting, cleaning, being a parent is the most spiritual thing there is. I really encourage people to follow their spiritual dreams, meditate, and journal write. I cannot say that enough times. And you don't have to meditate perfectly. I've been meditating for 50 years, and some days it's not perfect at all. It's my mind, blah, 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 blah. I got to look at my phone. I got, all this stuff. But taking the time and dedicating that time to yourself, your truth, and to your connection to God is really important. It's been a pleasure here. Thank you very much.
Hair loss is something that many of us face, but it's not something we have to face alone. With Keeps, a professional care solution for hair loss, there's no need for awkward doctor's visits or trips to the pharmacy. Simply complete an online consultation and get matched with a licensed medical provider who will tailor a personalized treatment plan just for you. Your treatment is delivered right to your door on your schedule, with options for 3, 6, and 12-month deliveries. It couldn't be more convenient. Plus, you can adjust, pause, or cancel your plan anytime you need. Keeps offers FDA-approved treatments that are clinically proven to work. Whether you're looking to prevent hair loss, stimulate growth, or just take better care of the hair you have, Keeps has got you covered. And most Keeps men notice results within just 6 months of starting treatment. With over 5,000 5-star reviews and having treated over 1 million men experiencing hair loss over the last 6 years, Keeps is a trusted solution. And you can message your medical provider or the Keeps care team 24/7 through their secure messaging portal. Thanks to Keeps for sponsoring this video and providing a free product to our viewers. Head to keeps.com/theotherside to get your special offer today. Remember, individual results may vary.
Staring lost up at the